This little piece of glass right here, I use it to help me design a glass railing. I have over 25 years of experience in designing and installing glass railings, and today I'm going to walk you with me as I design one for a rooftop that we recently measured in Steamboat Springs. In today's video, I got some honorable mentions. I'll be using Shapr3D, which is my favorite CAD software currently because it works on iPad, it works on Mac. We use Mac at Baron Glass. All these parts are by Q Railing, including the fascia mount base shoe, top cap, vinyl, and accessories, including the Q disc. So the Q disc is this little device inside there that allows the glass to be seated in the base shoe without any adhesives, and it allows the glass to be secured from the inside, which is good when you're on a rooftop. It allows for tilt and height adjustability, which is huge. Typically, we like to measure and order the glass and hardware all in one shot, whether it be base shoe or standoffs or post. But in this case, we opted to install the base shoe first and then go back to measure the glass second, because the base shoe had to sit about 3/4 of an inch off of that fascia, and I had no idea how many waves were in that fascia, so obviously that was going to affect the final location of the shoe. Now luckily the base shoe was installed perfectly level, so this should be relatively quick and uncomplicated. But what's cool about doing it this way is that the measure is relatively easy in the field. So we opted to measure outside dimension of base shoe so that I can build it from just that information backwards inside of Shapr3D. Before we get started, I just want to reiterate the importance of shop drawings. Shop drawings are especially important on something expensive like a glass railing because they dictate important details that should be signed off on ahead of time, so that in the end, if there's a problem, you can point back to the signed approval. And furthermore, the shop drawings act as installation instructions, and we try to design them in such a way that can be easily understood by the guys out there on this high roof. When I design these shop drawings, of course, I'm going to break out each and every panel individually so that when it's ready to be approved, or when it is approved, I should say, then it should be ready to order. All right, let's get right into the modeling. The first thing I did is I started with the outside dimension of the base shoe, which is already installed, and I just simply draw a rectangle, and then I use the offset tool to offset, looking at it from a plan view, I'm going to offset that overall dimension, the exact width of the base shoe. Now with Shapr3D, it makes it very easy to just rotate and extrude and cut things, which is essentially what drawing is. And when you have nothing but rectangles, it's super simple. So I draw the profile of the base shoe from the top angle, I rotate the screen, and I'm able to grab that shape and able to extrude that base shoe the exact depth that it is. So then I have the full profile of the base shoe. Second is I can put my cursor on top of on the top half of the base shoe, the top face of the base shoe, hit the space bar, and Shapr3D is going to start a new sketch right on top of that plane. It's going to normal to, which means it's going to give me a perfect scaled view of that area. Now what I like to do then is then offset the walls of the base shoe, come in a little bit, and then offset the exact wall interior thickness of the base shoe. And then from there, I can do the same thing. I can rotate my screen, I can select that, and I can extrude it down the exact depth. Now this is where having the glass in hand comes into play. Obviously, you can work based off of drawings, but I'm a visual person, and like having this sample like made as I make this drawing is a huge help, because I can literally take my tape measure and measure from top of base shoe to bottom of glass, and I can determine exactly how far the base shoe or the glass is going into the base shoe. And I also know from my measure that exactly how the exact distance from the top of the base shoe to the top of that little pony wall. Now the pony wall, it's about 9 inches thick, and so we need to make sure that the finish is more than 36 inches from any point where you can stand on. And if you can stand right next to it, it's less than 36 inches, then it's not going to pass code. So we opted for a 38-inch overall height for our glass railing, including the top cap, which is actually going to be about 47 inches above finished floor from the walking on the pavers down below. I can start a new sketch plane on top of the base shoe after I already have my information. In other words, how much I'm going to extrude the glass up and extrude the glass down. So using center lines, once again, very simple, very basic inside of Shapr. I can utilize a geometry that I already created. I'm just simply going to create diagonal lines connecting all the corners. I'm going to make those construction lines so they don't interfere with my drawing, and then I'm going to use that to reference my center line, and I'm just going to draw a square connect to opposing corners. And then from there, I'm going to go to the offset tool again. I'm going to offset the glass thickness, the thickness that I need, which in this case is, right? It's 9/16 laminated glass. So once I have the profile of the glass drawn, looking at it from the top, I can then rotate it to the side. I can grab that shape and I can extrude that glass down the exact depth that it's going to go into that base shoe. When I'm done with that, I can then touch that top edge of the glass, right? Inside Shapr3D, I can touch that top edge of the glass and I can extrude it up the exact height that I need. Now the height that I want is going to be taking into account this aluminum cap rail, and having the cap rail on here is really helpful because I can just take my tape measure, stick it on there, and I can determine the overall height of the glass. So once I have my glass the exact height that I need it, I can go ahead and come through and I can cut out the pieces of the base shoe that aren't supposed to be there where the walkway to gain access is. At the same time, I can cut the glass away so that I'm left with just the shell of the glass. Now, in the middle of drawing or periodically as I'm drawing is I'll jump over to the modeling tab and I'll make the parts look the way they're supposed to look. So in other words, I'll make the base shoe look black as I draw it, or any parts that are supposed to be black, I'll just make them black as I draw them. And then the glass, before I do anything to it, is I'm going to assign it to look like glass, so that when I go to the modeling or the visualization tab, the glass is transparent, which is going to be nice for the shop drawing down the line. Now, after I've done this, I'm going to go back to my modeling, and from here, I'm going to determine the glass panel widths. Now, I do manual calculations as I go, just to make sure I'm not doing anything twice, but sometimes it happens. So I just need to determine the panel width for each one of these runs. Now, I'm shooting for a panel width between 40 and 60 inches, and I want a width that's going to be consistent on all four sides. All four sides are not equal, so I'm going to find the best balance. Once I've done that, I'm simply going to start a new sketch plane on top of the glass edge, and I'm simply going to draw rectangles, and I'm going to lock the ends, and I'm going to draw basically rectangles that are going to simulate the gaps. So what I'll do first is I'll extrude the corners out so that the glass overlaps, and in this case I want the glass to kind of overlap like this, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is cut the corners out so that I now have 4 individual panes. So these are the individual runs, right? So now once I've done that, I can go through and I can start selecting the top of each one of those runs and splitting them into individual panels. Now, once I've done that, I can go ahead and start a sketch plane at exactly 38 inches above the pony wall, and I can go ahead and start a new sketch I can start a new sketch so I can draw in the cap rail, right? And again, because I have the cap rail in my hand, it's really easy to just put a tape measure on there and draw it as I go. And I'm going to start from the top down and extrude it so that it creates the cap rail. And again, it's going to be the all 4 sides. So I'm going to come back through and I'm going to create another sketch plane on the face of where it's not supposed to be. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, and then I'm going to finish the cap rail going down the sides of the glass, because the cap rail not only goes on top, but it's also supposed to go on the side all the way down to the bottom of the fascia mount base shoe. Now, once I have all this completed, I'm going to go ahead and I need to design the cladding. So we like to do things a little bit different in the glazing industry. Most base shoe, it comes with the cladding already, and the cladding is designed to essentially come up to this point right here of the base shoe, so that it leaves room for that vinyl. But we think the vinyl's ugly, and so we prefer for the cladding to actually almost touch the glass, so that eliminates the need for vinyl altogether. So I'm just going to double click and copy the base shoe and glass section. I'm going to move it off to the side. I'm just going to cut out a little section of the base shoe. I'm going to normal to one side, and from here I can design the cladding exactly the way I want it to be. And the cladding is actually being provided by the roofing company, so these drawings are actually for them to make their cladding width. Luckily, they're going to clad it for us. All we're doing is the base shoe, glass, and top cap. Now, I've done all the heavy lifting on my Mac using a mouse and a keyboard and a big screen, and that's huge, but all my shop drawings usually end up inside of GoodNotes for iPad. I don't know what GoodNotes we're on, maybe 6 or 7. By the time you watch this, it might be on GoodNotes 100, so I'm just going to say GoodNotes for iPad. So if you didn't know, Shapr3D also works on an iPad. So usually the first thing that I do is I'll close the model on my Mac, let it save. I'll then open exactly that same model on my iPad. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the visualization tab, and I'm going to go ahead and select the transparent background, and I'm just going to rotate my view angle around to try to give an overall aesthetic vibe of what it's going to look like when it's all said and done. Simply hit capture, and those images are saved into my camera roll. Next, inside of Shapr3D, using just my iPad mini and my Apple Pencil, is I'm going to go ahead and create a new drawing. And this is where I'm going to just go into Shapr, click the new drawing button, and then it's going to have me select what I want it to make a drawing of. I'll just simply drag and highlight the glass railing, of course, because that's what I'm drawing. And then I'm going to hit next. I'm going to choose my sheet size, which is A11, or maybe just call it sheet A. And that's because that is a standard 8.5 by 11 document. So eventually when this gets printed and stapled onto a job ticket, it's going to fill up the whole page. And most PDF documents are that size. So I try to stick to that as well as I can. So I'll go ahead and bring that in, and using Shapr3D, I can give it the standard views, which is, front, top, left, right, isometric. 9 times out of 10, I'm just using the front and or the top. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and give a front view and a top view of the glass railing, including the top cap. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and dimension the exterior of the base shoe to show where those dimensions came from. And then when I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to move on to the next drawing. And the next drawing is going to be of the glass itself. So when I go to create a new drawing, rather than selecting everything, I'm actually going to hide the top rail, and I'm only going to select the glass. And I'm going to make one page just for glass. And this one is going to include the seams. It's going to include the panel widths and the overall heights, which is the true to life glass sizes as I'm going to order it. Then the next page, I'm going to get that base shoe drawing, and I'm going to make it its own drawing, really tall, really big, really clear, because I know that somebody else has to read this drawing because they're going to fabricate their flashing to fit this base shoe per my drawing. So I just want to make it crystal clear, leaving all kinds of room. It's going to touch, nearly touch the glass when it's all installed. It's going to look fantastic, and I'm pretty confident this is pretty easy to read. And then finally, on one of the pages, I'm going to include those screenshots or those captures of the final product in various different ways. I'm going to insert them directly out of my camera roll because I saved them out of Shapr with a transparent background. I can drop them onto my document with the transparent background, so there's not like these weird overlapping blocks, and I can resize them, reshape them, take pictures, add pictures of whatever I need to right there into the drawing. And when I'm satisfied with the result, then I call it a day. So once I've done that, I can make some more notes inside of Shapr3D as I see fit, because I just find it much easier to mark stuff up inside of GoodNotes. And once I'm satisfied with that, I just simply hit export out of my iPad. I'm going to export this as a PDF, and I'm just going to airdrop it straight onto my Mac. Now on my Mac, I'm going to go ahead and save that file into the drive that it belongs, which is a pre-approved folder. And once I'm done with that, I then email it to the customer. Now this customer already approved the preliminary drawings and all the hardware and powder coating finish, but now they just need to approve the final shops, which include the glass sizes, glass panel widths, gaps, overall finish height. And when they see the shop drawing, they're usually pretty blown away. And it'll get approved right away, which this one absolutely did. And once it's approved, I can then just take that one page out of there that was the glass sizes, and I can just make it a little more crystal clear for the manufacturer, send it off to the manufacturer, and they're going to fabricate it. That gets printed, stapled onto the job ticket. When glass arrives, the guys go out and install it. So this is part 1 of this project, and part 2 will be the final install. If you're interested to see how it turns out, why don't you like and subscribe and stay tuned. I will be posting a follow-up video to show you the final result, of course. I wish I would have waited, but I just couldn't wait to make this video. But with that said, if you would like to see more tutorials or more basic tutorials on exactly how I use the technology that I have to come up with the results, such as you can see on Barren Glass Instagram or Facebook, then why don't you go ahead and comment the word tutorial down below. I'd be happy to make more just like this. If you are a glazier, if you're new to glazing, if you're a startup, or if you're been doing it for years and you just want to branch out into more complex items, such as the glass products that myself or Keith Dublin produce, and you need a little help, why don't you go ahead and email me or DM me, look me up on LinkedIn, DM me there. I provide consulting services to those who wish to have the knowledge that's in my brain. I'd be happy to help. Reach out to me anytime. Furthermore, if you're in glazing and you're not posting content, I highly suggest that you get on the ball and just start posting what you got. I have tons of videos on why glazing content is a good thing, especially in 2026 with the age of AI. Obviously, I'm a real person, I'm not AI, and building human connections is what this content game is all about. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. More like it are coming. Peace.